Welcome to episode 52 of Accessible Finance, where we demystify personal financial topics and answer your questions so you leave saying, I get it now. I'm Eric Johns.
And I'm Rachel John.
Let's dive in.
All right, so we've had so much fun doing our scenarios, and it's interesting because we've kind of cultivated them from a variety of sources. So this one comes to us from a peer's parent.
Okay.
It was conversational. I wrote down what I could remember of what they told me, but it wasn't in writing. I have less information overall than what we have, but what I have
Well,
is
it's enough for,
my takeaway.
just ballpark estimates.
Yes, it's enough
General
for
discussion.
correct. And anytime there's information that we don't have, we could say if this is the case, then this, and if
Sure.
right. Um, so I would categorize this as somebody who is working to plan their retirement. She's 60.
Okay.
It's a 60-year-old widow.
Widow, okay.
Yes. But kids are older, so there's no like dependents or anything like that. She is planning her retirement with a relatively large cash reserve and is trying to figure out the optimal way to address that.
Got it.
She is planning to retire in 5 years at 65 because she still wants to be able to be young and active enough to be engaged with her grandkids.
Okay.
Okay, so the general questions before we get into her details were I know I've got this large cash reserve. How do I allocate it? Should I invest more aggressively or just hold on to it as a safety net?
Okay.
What is the best way to balance between cash and investments as retirement approaches? I'm trying to understand the difference between safety and growth. She gets a lot of her information from just talking to other people.
Sure.
And while that's great to have a support system, she seems very swayed by the last person she's spoken to.
Got
And
it.
so she's heard a lot about, you should be changing where you're invested as you get older, but she doesn't really know what that means or what that looks like.
Okay.
And then finally, she wanted to know if she should consider using the cash to purchase a lifetime annuity for guaranteed income in her retirement.
Got it.
Yes. All right. We can call our friend here Linda.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's talk about Linda. All right.
So Linda's current information as I knew it to be.
Yep.
Currently has 10,000 in checking.
Okay.
She has 250,000 in a high yield savings account.
Okay.
It's currently getting about 4%.
Okay.
She's got 500K in a 401k that's just in the target date fund that they told her.
Yep.
She's got 100,000 in a Roth IRA that's in an index fund.
Okay.
And she's got 50 in a brokerage, 50,000 in a brokerage account.
Okay.
Her current income is 100,000. And when discussing her spending, she stated that it's negotiable. And I think part of that comes from the fact that she has new additions to the family, so grandkids. So she's trying to adjust to what that looks like.
Mhm.
But she's willing to cut back significantly on spending if it means that she can retire at 65. So she's willing to forego things right now in order to be able to enjoy her retirement with her
Sure.
kids. Sometimes that is certainly easier said than done. And she really struggled to be able
It's a
to.
lot easier to ramp it up than it is to dial back.
Yes, she definitely struggled to quantify how much she's spending and she was very honest about basically saying, I really don't know, but I'm willing to spend less if it means that I can enjoy later.
Got it.
She has a home that is valued at 600,000. She
Wow.
does not have debt or mortgage.
All right.
Okay. So that's kind of what we're working with
Sure.
right now. So
Okay.
Linda's first question. She's got 250,000 in a high yield savings account,
Mhm.
and she's starting to wonder what she should be doing to make that money work better for her in the long term. She's got nervous because she said that she heard that the interest rates are going to be going down, so it's going to be less affected in her savings account.
Okay.
So she wants to be able to be proactive about moving them, but she's not sure if she should invest, and if so, how.
Right. So, boy, there's a lot. There's a
Yeah.
lot here. There's a lot here. I think the first place we start is cash flow. we need to find out what she's actually spending.
Correct.
She was honest about being unsure.
She
That's
was.
good. That's fantastic. We need to be sure or have some degree of clarity around spending, right? Because that's going to determine both how much we can play with now. I mean, we have the extra high yield savings account money if we needed, to have her spend that
Correct.
and then, start deferring more to her 401k or, make do Roth conversions or 401k Roth. Anyway, we need to figure out where she is in on this from a spending perspective, and then we need to find out what her goals are. We need to gain some clarity around her goals, and we need to gain a lot of clarity around her risk tolerance.
Yeah.
So, what did we say her 401k was allocated in? And a Roth we said was in an index. Oh, 401k was a target date, and Roth was
Yeah.
an index fund. And by
Correct.
index, I assume we mean like VTI or something,
I would
like
assume.
broad U.S. market.
I don't think that she knows. She seemed very willing to say that she has very little knowledge of this stuff. Her husband kind of always did that stuff.
Yeah.
So then when he passed, she just kind of followed whatever the expert in her life told her. So the 401k plan person said target date fund. She said, cool.
Okay.
One of her friends told her this index fund is great. So she said, awesome.
So it might be a good time to maybe educate a little bit about
education.
what target date funds are aiming to do, right? So
Right.
what they're trying to do is glide path individuals with average risk tolerances towards retirement. So you target your retirement date,
Mhm.
right? And then they try to move you closer to a majority fixed income weighted portfolio over that
As you
time
get,
frame.
yeah.
So if I have like a target date 2060 fund, right? If
Mhm.
that's just what I picked, then I'm going to be like 90-10 equity to fixed income
Right
initially.
now, yeah.
And then it'll stay that way for some time actually. And then as I close in on maybe 15, well, about probably closer to 10 years from retirement, it's just going to start changing. Like it's going to start maybe every quarter it's going to give me like 5% more fixed income, right? So it's going to glide me down from
Right.
90-10 all the way to something like
15,
40-60 or something maybe,
exactly.
or at least 50-50. But they change. They're not all, it's not, monolithic. They're not all the same. Okay. But anyway, we want to make sure that she actually wants to be there
Correct.
and that her risk capacity, which is the risk she needs to
Needs to
take to hit her goals, is actually going to be satisfied by this probably significant bond holding portfolio right now. But we will say, if you it won't matter if you were to panic sell, right? So we need to make sure that she's comfortable. If we're going to say we're going to get in a 60-40 portfolio, we need to be absolutely certain that that's something that she's comfortable with.
Correct.
Because if it's not, then we might be shooting ourselves in the foot if she goes and sells all the equities when they go down 20%.
It's also going to be very important to make sure that this client in particular, that Linda truly understands what 60-40 means, what the pros and cons are of being in equities versus not. There's a lot of education that needs to take place here.
Yeah.
And I think that Linda seemed very aware of that, but I think it was very much I never had to worry about it. Now I think she's starting to feel as though she may be too old to start worrying about it. And that's where I think working with somebody who you are comfortable asking questions to that does not make you feel like you cannot ask those questions
Right.
is so important, because the primary goal should always be making sure that you are comfortable with what is happening.
Absolutely. That's priority number one.
Yeah.
That's paramount. So first question, how should I allocate my large cash reserve, right?
Correct. 250,000.
Okay, so we've got 250K in a high yield savings account. We don't really know what we're spending. Again, we have to know that first. Why do we have to know that
Correct.
first? Because we don't know what she needs for retirement. We have no idea if we have no idea what she needs to spend in
Correct.
retirement, right? Like
Correct.
if
Now,
it's 200,000,
I will say, the information I got, while it wasn't quantified, she did say that she's been steadily increasing what she's saving, suggesting that she is spending less than what what her income is, right?
okay.
So her income's $100,000.
Right, she's got savings here, so maybe she's spending,
Correct.
80, 70,
So
somewhere in
she's
that
spending
ballpark.
something less
If I
than
had to
100.
guess, I'd guess somewhere 75,
Correct.
75.
Now her mortgage is paid off, right? So she has no
Yeah.
debt. So the only things she's paying for are like current living expenses. She's not
Correct.
trying to pay down anything else.
Right. So we want to look at things like
Always
the
fun.
Social Security statement,
Correct.
and then we'll subtract that from what her current spending is. Try to determine what the shortfall is,
Yeah.
and what we need to generate from our portfolio. Okay, and then we would talk through that with Linda and make sure that she's comfortable with all these things, all these assumptions.
Exactly.
That she understands
Exactly.
why we're thinking what we're thinking.
And then as far as like the, wondering if she should invest more aggressively or keep stuff as a safety net. That goes back again to what you were saying about understanding her risk tolerance and really getting a clear idea of what her goals are.
Right.
If she's looking to, travel abroad in retirement, then she may need to start investing more aggressively so she could save up the funds for that. If her dream in retirement is being able to
Yeah.
host sleepovers at her house with her grandkids coming over,
Yep.
that may not have the same kind of
No,
financial burden. And so she
certainly
may
not.
not need to invest as aggressively. So,
That's right. So just
yeah,
real quick to circle back to the question, 250K in a high yield savings account.
yeah,
What are you guys doing with that?
right.
Probably we might live on some of that
Yeah,
and defer more of her 100K a year into a 401K, right? Because she's over, she said she's 60, so
she's
she's over
60 right now.
50.
She is.
So I want to say the catch up is if it's $23,000 is the deferral maximum if you're under 50. If you're
Right.
over 50, I want to say it's 30,500. Check me and make sure I'm not wrong.
I'm
But
like,
you can check me while I'm talking. But I think that's what it is. If it's not, but basically, what we could do is we could defer from this $100,000 salary. We can defer 30,500. Let's say.
it is
Was
exactly.
that right?
Yeah.
I'm
It's an
incredible.
additional 7,500 this year.
I'm incredible.
Mhm.
Good point. Well said, Rachel.
And yeah, I'm very impressed.
Anyway, done it once or twice.
You're gonna
So,
take it.
so she could defer more of her
Yeah.
salary, so we pay less taxes now.
Yeah.
We'll want to look again. We're talking. This is bread and butter. We want to talk about a little bit about Roth
So you're saying
contributions.
really quickly, just to clarify that, you're saying instead of worrying about taking the 250 and trying to invest all of it, taking like deferring paycheck stuff into the 401k and using that 250 as your living expenses rather than your W2 income.
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
Thank you for articulating that. I just kind of glossed over it. I was just kind of like, yeah, we're just going to defer a lot and
I
use
just
some of the 250.
sure. I just
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying.
her emergency um reserves or her emergency fund, right, should be coming from that
Yeah. So you'll hear us
250 amount as
you'll
well.
hear us talk a lot about being intentional with our tax brackets and utilizing our tax brackets. What that means is we're either going to try to push income down the road, like we're going to defer the taxability of our income,
Yeah.
or we're going to try to pull it forward. How would you pull it forward? Roth conversions
Yeah.
or Roth contributions or essentially Roth conversions, but you could do them in a number of ways. And one of them, as you approach retirement, what's called a Roth conversion ladder. So it's frequently individuals might retire at age 60, not
Yeah.
elect for Social Security until 70, and then they don't have RMDs until 73.
Right.
So now we have between age 60 and minimally 70 where Social Security kicks in,
Correct.
where our income could theoretically be some very low number. We
Right.
just have our income and dividends that are being kicked out from our taxable account.
Correct.
We'll incur no tax
So you have a
consequences
low
in our
tax
Roth
bracket.
and our deferred accounts.
Right.
So during that time, we actually don't. So some people, we've heard this a lot, right? You hear, well, I'm happy to be in the 0% tax bracket. I love paying no taxes. I love paying in the 10% bracket, or I don't want to, why would I want to go in the 12%? I'm in the 10% and I'm thrilled.
Correct.
Okay. Wrong, right? Like, why is that wrong? It's
Well,
not necessarily wrong, but why is that maybe
suboptimal.
suboptimal?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Great
We're
word.
doing it.
Fantastic word.
Well, and the reality is that like the government will not let you stay there because RMDs are knocking on your door. So they're going to force you to realize income later on that will kick you into higher and higher brackets.
Mhm.
And if you're not basically pulling some of that money out early where you can realize all of them in the 12% bracket,
Right.
they're going to start pushing you up into
And then,
significantly
right.
higher
And sometimes
ones.
if you do nothing and you have a large enough portfolio where you're
Yeah.
retiring at 60,
Yeah.
you can have millions. Well, you hopefully have millions
Right. You'll be
in
great.
your tax deferred accounts.
Correct.
When RMDs kick in, we're talking 80, 90K a year
Yes.
minimum, right? Like that. And that's
You're
the
in the
beginning.
20
And the way
yeah.
RMDs work is they go up
larger and larger amounts.
and your portfolio
Mhm.
theoretically goes up.
Correct.
So it's just going to get bigger and you're going to keep getting hit harder with the tax burden,
Correct.
right? So you might be in the 12% today and the 24% tomorrow, which is going to become the 28%.
Yes.
So if we're looking at 12 versus 28,
Yes.
we would rather pull the income forward in the 12. All right. So we pay tax in the 12 and then never pay the tax again if we're doing like Ross,
Yes.
for example. What are we excited about?
I just had a light bulb moment.
What? Did you?
So, yes.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay. I want to describe what our goal is in terms of Disney rides.
Oh no. How did we get here?
In case you didn't know, we're taking a Disney trip. I just wanted to say that we don't want the fluctuation in our tax brackets to feel like you're on the hook, right? We want it to feel like you're on.
You said Disney rides and then
Well,
made a
okay.
Universal ride right out of the gate. Well done.
Okay, well, we're going to both. But you don't want it to feel like you're on whatever, Aerosmith, right? I'm better. But you want it to feel like
I
you're
don't
on
think the ride's name is Aerosmith, by the way.
whatever, rock and roll ride, rock and
Rocket
roller.
roller coaster. Come on, man. I know that. And I don't like it.
I didn't go roller coaster until I was like 20. Um, you want it to feel like you're on the people mover, right?
Sure. You
You
want a
want
more
those tax
stable
brackets
experience.
to just hang out.
Grandpa Al will be proud.
I
My
know.
grandpa very much enjoyed the
His
People Mover.
favorite.
That was
It's
his
his
favorite
favorite
ride at
ride.
Epcot, especially in his older
Um,
years.
exactly. Also, just brief caveat while we're slightly off track.
Oh, we're off track.
I did
You got us firmly off track.
not normally me, that's you. I wanted to I wanted to just preface all of this with saying that while we are talking and living in a lot of like tax optimization and tax things like that, Linda in particular would just kind of go off of the last person's information that she had. And I just think it's important to stamp that not all information or education is going to be equally
Oh,
valuable.
for sure.
So, in lieu of, I just wanted to point out that
Oh,
our tax knowledge as a collective unit, aka his, got a brief step up because we are now working with an enrolled agent. So
thank you.
I think it's important because if you're sitting here, you might be like, what are these two people just going on and on about? So the IRS has deemed him knowledgeable enough in all things tax to apparently give him something I will be framing that may be added to the law behind us.
Represent individuals before
IRS, exactly. So I think that that's important just to know so that it doesn't feel like we're just
Yeah,
like,
making it up, just winging it.
there's no magic 8 ball here or
Right.
anything like that. Yeah.
Fair
Sorry.
enough.
Okay, back to
We were just talking about trying to level your effective tax rate over time, which is far more interesting than the People Mover and Disney Rise of Triple.
the people mover is
I'm kidding.
great.
It's okay. So, yeah, we're trying to level the tax rates over time. We want to pull
Yeah.
forward income in low tax bracket and effective tax rate years, and then we want to push it out. And in this case, it's very likely, like right now, her balances are not particularly, I mean, they're high, but like relatively
They're
speaking,
not necessarily
she's not going to
retirement
get,
level.
well, right, she's not going to get hammered
Yeah.
with R&Ds from her current balances. So it might be viable for her to do something, especially if she wants to retire at 65. She could be setting up for a Roth conversion ladder. What do I
Yeah.
mean by that? She could be deferring, like I said, the 30,500 over the next 5 years. So she's pumping this 401k account, trying to get it closer to $1 million,
Correct.
and then maybe executing maybe like a $50,000, $75,000 Roth conversion
Over
from the year 65
to
through 70 or
70.
69, I guess, and then it's 70 when
Yeah.
we're going to reevaluate Social Security and everything else. But you
Correct.
probably are still going to do a little bit of conversions there.
But by
So-
putting more into that 401k,
Right.
it offers more creativity down the line when
Correct.
it comes time to being able to do those Roth.
And one thing we are absolutely doing is a backdoor Roth. And you might hear, wait, Roth, why are we doing that? We just talked about reducing her income. Well, we talked about she has $250,000 in a high yield savings account.
Correct.
If you said to her, you can wave a magic wand and instantly that $250,000 goes into a Roth IRA, she should, if she's a rational actor, always say yes to
We
that.
would.
It's 100% the play.
Yes.
Right? So what we're doing then is we're going to take money out of this high yield savings account to buy groceries. And then we'll take some of our earned income, or really you could do it from the 250K. It doesn't matter as long as your tax return says you have earned income. We're going to make non-deductible traditional IRA contributions because we said she doesn't have any other IRAs. So the
Correct.
pro rata and aggregation rules that we've talked about in the past and are particularly complicated.
There is a podcast episode on it.
Yeah, they're kind of complicated.
They are.
But that doesn't apply here because she's got her money in a 401k still. And
Which is
then
a current
when she
active
stops employment, when she
Separates
retires at
into it,
55,
yes.
at 65, it's likely that we would roll this 401k into an IRA for reasons we mentioned in our last episode. 401ks just can't possibly have
the same
less fees than zero, right?
and
so IRAs
more
have zero.
options than all of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And exactly.
Yes.
Can't have less fees than zero, can't have more options than all of
Than
the
everything.
options.
Right.
Right. So IRAs are typically going to be better once you're over 59 and a half.
Correct.
There's some asset protection and liability protection in the 401ks in certain states.
If Eric's
Not-
really excited, he
not
can make
derailing
his own
there.
episode about it.
Yeah, no, we won't get there. But my point is simply, I don't know if we're even answer more than one question here. But basically,
Yeah.
this 250 this $250,000 we're probably going to be using to defer some money and
Yeah.
put it in a Roth to set ourselves up for retirement. We want some. We don't even hate having it there because we want some in a taxable to pay the taxes on our Roth conversion ladder that we're probably going to set up.
Well, and
Sorry,
honestly, we did
super
technically.
comprehensive. So
Well,
much for a general
but in
answer.
fairness, I think that the majority of her questions all kind of were different aspects and facets of exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
Because the next one was, how do you balance, or what's the best way to balance between cash and investments as retirement approaches? Because in her mind, she was like, cash is the safest,
Yeah.
right? And so as I get older, I should be focused on safety, not on growth.
Yeah.
Right. And so she was kind of trying to navigate this idea of like, I don't want to miss out on like growing my money, but also I'm really scared to not have money,
Right.
which is why there's 250,000 in the savings account in the first place.
Right. And we could talk about options there. But typically what we would say,
This
if
goes back
if
to
portfolios can substantiate it, if your asset allocation overall can substantiate it, we like to keep a year of retirement spending or a year of spending in taxable account, right? This is in addition to your emergency fund. So we keep 1 month expense in checking. Usually you'll have an emergency, well, not usually. Everyone will have an emergency fund
everyone that works
of
with us
three to,
will.
I was gonna say usually 3 months, but
Yeah.
it's from 3 to 6 months. It depends on the individual and their, situation. And then on top of that, we'd have a year of expenses in taxable, like super accessible, usually in a money market as opposed to high yield savings account. We've talked about that in the past. Money market is more reflective of current interest rates. Banks tend to mess with high yield savings accounts more because
Drag their feet.
they're going to try to make as much money as they can.
Right.
And until consumers are essentially fleeing from that bank, they're pretty happy to just not pay you anything. So when rates are going up, they just keep them there. And then when rates go down, they instantly change them.
Yeah.
Because at that point, like they would like to pay you less. So
But they've made it as tedious as possible.
correct. So we're larger fans of money markets there. But anyway, 1 year in a taxable and then 2 years in tax deferred,
right.
just so that you're preparing for your R&Ds. You can pull the money out, right? All these people are going to be retirees are going to be over 59 and a half usually. Like
unless you're part of the
we'd have a different we'd have different strategies there. But we're not talking about that. She's 60. So
no, not here.
so anyway, yeah, and then 2 years in tax deferred, and then we'll keep those in liquid funds.
Right.
Those are not like this is not like bond markets. We're not going into just broad aggregate bond tickers there.
Correct. And
Sorry,
then,
so she had another question about an annuity, right?
yeah. So the final question was, should she consider using some or all of that 250 to purchase a lifetime annuity for guaranteed income in her retirement?
I think just
When
knowing
would you do that?
if she is just deathly afraid of the market and just can't tolerate risk in any way, or she really wants the fixed income. I mean, if she's really sure of the annuity, she thinks she has longevity concerns. She thinks she might live to 95, right, or 100.
Right.
Maybe her mom lives to that ballpark.
Right. There's no current like health
Right.
concerns or
So
medical concerns.
annuities are best thought of as insurance against living too long. Okay. So you need to have, if you're going to want an annuity, you need to be concerned about that, outliving your money, right? You need to be very risk averse. Okay. So, and then you really want to get what we would typically say is since it's trying to solve those two problems, we would want to get like what they call an SPIA. It's a single premium immediate annuity so that you can get the biggest bang for your buck. You just go up to a broker and you say, I'm going to hand you 100 or $250,000 and I want you to hand me the largest payments for life. When you start adding riders in there and you got variable index annuities and all these other things, they're going to start paying you less.
Yes.
Right. When you have survivor, joint and survivor. And I'm not saying that that's always wrong. Maybe joint and survivor is something you need. And
but
then
it's
we talk
very
about it.
situational.
But,
and I think what's important to note about Linda and just her general demeanor is that Linda is soft and kind and a wonderful human and a very like self-aware people pleaser. So she is terrified to go and talk to like car salesman. Like she's the
we said she liked to talk to trusted people in her life. She should bring one of those with her.
Yes, she's going to be one who should bring a skeptical friend / child /
disinterested third party for sure.
Because my concern for Linda would be that she would be very easily upsold. Like,
right.
I mean, They would
Because
salivate seeing her come
the
in.
thing about it is all of the riders sound good. They're
Correct.
like death benefit riders where like if
When they
you
don't even
die
just sound
within
good,
5 years, then they give you like they
yes,
carve out like a portion of it to give
yes.
to your like beneficiaries.
It sounds like you're
And when you do
selfish when
those
you don't
things,
do that. If you
right.
weren't doing that, how you're not thinking about them. And the way that it's sold to you makes it seem like who wouldn't say yes
Oh
to
yeah,
that? Like
absolutely.
only horrible people would say
Right.
no to this thing.
Right. So we're not like diametrically opposed to it. We just want to make
Correct.
sure that
Her
it
situation merits it.
exactly that it applies to
And
you and you need it.
the reality here is that Linda's not opposed to investment or risk. She's just opposed to being the one that makes that decision as
Hmm.
to where an appropriate risk is.
Sure.
So, again, I think that this all circles back again to really educating Linda, making
Yeah.
her feel comfortable so that she can start advocating for what it is that she wants.
No, absolutely.
So quickly,
Want
just
to
to put
recap
a
for us?
bow, yeah,
All
to put a
right.
bow on it. Okay, so for Linda, we would definitely start as we would with anybody on cash flow analysis. She would need a bit more work on kind of identifying what that is, where it's going, where it's coming from, if it's stable over the years, or if she kind of spends differently. Um, some significant goal clarification about what her goals are in the short term, but in addition, what are her retirement goals? What is she looking to be able to do in retirement? Because we need to know what we're trying to fund. Um, Identifying what her risk tolerance is, as well as doing some investment education to make sure that she understands the different types of
Absolutely.
accounts, the different types of ways to invest, you know, the whole shebang. Um, we also discussed the need to identify her current tax brackets over the next few years, and then also projecting forward so that we can essentially put her on the people mover tax plan rather than the rock and roller coaster tax plan. Um, that's not to say rock and roller coaster wouldn't be fun. Maybe she wants to actually do that with her family and just not her taxes. Um, we also discussed the fact that we personally advocate and believe that best practice is having an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months. Again, that depends on a few factors like how many sources of income you have and so on. 1 year of expenses in a taxable account with some liquid funds, 2 years of expenses in a tax deferred account, again with those liquid funds. And then with regards to the annuity, just making sure that an annuity in this case would really be kind of two pronged about insuring against the fear of living too long or outliving your money.
Yep.
And then if you're incredibly risk averse. And then we also discussed, being educated about what the different options are prior to going and advocated for a single premium immediate annuity.
There it is.
Yeah,
Well done.
thank you.
All right, guys. Well, if you enjoyed today's episode, please review the show. And if you have any topics you'd like discussed or financial problems you'd like solved, reach out to us at podcast@equilibriumfp.com or visit our website at equilibriumfp.com.
Till next time.
Thanks, guys.